So today we're in our series, Fight for Our Faith. You know, we talked about fight for our marriage, fight for our families. We need to learn how to fight for our faith. We are contending for the church. There's a target on the church in America because if America collapses, there's no backup. There's no America behind America, okay? And we hear a lot about the Great Reset today. We hear a lot about the Great Reset. Some people say, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. No, it's in Revelation. Check it out. It's been prophesied there's going to be a Great Reset. There's going to be a one world government, a one world leader, and a one world economy. So if you wonder about, these fake stimulus plans, they're not stimulating anything but destroying America. Breaking the backbone of America to destroy the economy of America. You destroy the economy of America, then you can reset things. See, we're the problem to them, but we're the solution for God. Okay? And so what I want to do is actually, because we're in the book of Jude, I want to talk a little bit about the first Great Reset. Not this reset that's coming, or we're watching it take place as we speak, where they say you'll own nothing and be happy, right? We're going to talk about the first Great Reset, Noah and the ark and the flood. And we're going to understand God's plan because we can't be naive about Genesis chapter 6. We're going to unpack Genesis chapter 6 a little bit, and that's given us the account of what took place concerning the flood. But, when Jesus said the last days will be like Sodom and Gomorrah, the last days will be like Noah, that's telling us something. There's some diagnostics that we can take. There's some things that we can start to look at to say, oh, we're close, right? Or, oh, we're in it, okay? And so Jude, in verse 6, I'm going to back up a little bit from where we were last week. It says, I remind you of the angels who did not stay within the limits of their authority God gave them, but left the place where they belonged. God has kept them securely chained in prisons of darkness, waiting for the great day of judgment. Now, Judah, which wrote Jude, he's not writing this phrase to an ignorant audience. When he says this, the audience that he's writing to knows exactly the account that he's talking about. And he's talking about the account of Genesis chapter 6 of Noah and the Great Reset. And so we see that angels, God created the angels, right? And we know that Lucifer was the most beautiful angel. Matter of fact, he was the angel of worship. And if you'll study this out, literally music exuded from his being. He was a walking, if I could go back to the 70s, a walking boombox. Anybody know what I'm with a cassette tape? Anyone? All right. And so worship, and so pride entered into his heart. He committed high treason against God, got a third of the angels to rise up against him, and God kicked him and the third of the angels out of heaven. But that didn't satisfy Lucifer, because at that point, he deceived Eve and got Adam to disobey. Now, Eve was deceived. Adam knew what he was doing was wrong. Okay? And then they were excommunicated or excommunicado out of the garden. And so we see that Satan has now done this twice. He got a third of the angels to go with him. And if he can deceive a third of the angels that stand in the presence of God, you better be on watch for yourself. Come on, don't think that you're immune to being deceived. The Bible says in the last days, even the elect could be deceived. So he got God's creation to rebel against him, Adam and Eve. So strike two, boom, boom. And so God has to institute a plan to redeem mankind through the bloodline from Adam all the way through Mary, and he has to preserve the bloodline so that it would not be tainted so that way Jesus Christ could come and redeem the world, could save the world. That's the salvation plan. And so, great, I got signed out. Anybody love computers? Amen. I know some of you are like, I still write checks and I use paper. Aren't you holy? My wife still writes checks, so she's, oh yeah. So let me give you just the first picture, and I read this in our Easter message, but I think it bears repeating. We have Adam, Seth, Enosh. We're going to go through this in a minute. I got a graphic, but don't put it up yet. Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah. That's the bloodline. That's the genealogies. The bloodline of Christ is being preserved, okay? We get to Noah. Now, it's interesting, when you go back to every name having a meaning, this is literally what the genealogies are saying to us from Adam to Noah. Every one of those names has a meaning. And it says, man is appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed God shall come down, teaching that his death shall bring the despairing rest. Is that beautiful? So don't tell me that Genesis doesn't matter. Genesis really matters. You can know the end from the beginning from the end. God is in the end and he's in the beginning. He's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. So please don't let me, hear us that Genesis isn't important. Because you can't embrace Christ and evolution. You can't embrace Christ and say, well, God used evolution. Because it doesn't work. So what I want you to see though, and let's put this graphic up now. This is the lifespan of the genealogies from Adam to Noah. Let me step up here for a second. I'm going to be Vanna White for a moment. Adam lived 930 years. That's a long time. 930 years. See, a lot of us, we think, my grandpa passed away in his 60s. Rob's dad passed away. How old was your dad? 63, just a couple years ago. I mean, it's like, wow, we feel robbed when you can have a grandpa that lives 930 years. Amen? I mean, you start looking at it. So they didn't have the internet. So check this out. Adam was in the garden. Adam was the first man created. Adam has first-hand account experience. I was there, I saw it, I did it. It's my fault. Okay? That's why we're outside of the garden. That's Adam. And so when you look at the cross-section between Adam's death and the birth of Noah, it's less than about 90 years. So Noah missed meeting his great grandfather, Adam, in this spectrum of time by not that many years. But guess what? Seth was still alive. 1042, almost. And then we have Enos, right? So when you get the first-hand accounts being passed down, and look, we're talking about campfire time. Grandpa, tell that story again when you were in the garden. Tell that story again when you used to walk with God in the cool of the day. Tell that story again when you got to name all the animals. Grandpa, tell that story. Come on, we're a long time down the road and people are still sitting there saying, Grandpa, tell that story. This isn't some kind of story that is passed down from this grandfather to this grandfather to this grandfather that only lived a little while to this grandfather to this and then 1,000 years later, and how many different stories. Have you ever played telephone? Anybody ever, you got family? You know how stories change within a few conversations? Right, we're talking about the retention of truth. This is so important because it's not passed down to where it can get polluted and perverted and changed. And so you can take that graphic down. So let me give you a synopsis because I'm leaning on Bible experts. I do not proclaim to be a Bible expert in this area. So let's lean on what they would have to say. We're going to go to some of the historic books, the Jewish historic books. Now, Josephus, 1st century AD, he reported that Adam and Eve had 56 children, 33 sons and 23 daughters. You see how that's possible, though, if you're living a long time? There's no cable. You can explain that to your children later. If they're in first grade, they know more than you. Josephus also reported that Lamech had 77 children. I mean, when you look at the lifespan and how many kids they had, we're talking about the time of Adam to the time of the flood is about 2,000 years. We're talking about the same time period between the death and resurrection of Christ and now. And how many people are on the planet right now? Over 8 billion. And it keeps changing. It keeps growing. So can you imagine how many people are living on the planet at the time of the flood? Let me just give you what some experts are saying. Not me, it's some experts. But think about it. If the population reached 1 billion with this kind of birth rate, which would be far beyond that, with this kind of birth rate that we're looking at, it would be over 10 billion people on the planet. I don't know how many people are on the planet when the flood happened. All I can say is they lived a long time, they didn't have cable, and they had a lot of kids. Okay? So, color in the picture. But you can see if there had been over 1 billion people on the planet, there would have been some logistical problems in feeding and caring for the population. I mean, right now we can't even we went to Cheesecake Factory, no pasta. I know. I told you, the end of the world's coming. No pasta at Cheesecake Factory. I mean, if we have supply chain problems now, come on, think about it. It indicated that technology would have been a higher level than what we give them credit for. Because we think they're rubbing sticks and stones together. I mean, I just want to poke at some things that maybe some people just have preconceived ideas that they all lived in caves and had torches. So we know that by these population rates, it could have been as high as 10 billion people. That's crazy. And it would have required some technology to be able to move food. And of course, there was no rain at that time. Right? There was no rain. It was a perfect ecosystem because there would be a perfect amount of dew on the ground every morning, so it didn't need to rain. I wish we could do that up here. It'd be awesome. So we know that there was probably a lot of people on the planet, and we know that people lived a long time, and we also know that Satan has disrupted God's plan twice. Committed high treason in heaven, was kicked out, had Adam and Eve kicked out of the garden, and now God is instituting another plan to redeem mankind. And Satan wants to be like God. He can't be God, but he wants to be like him. And he wants to disrupt the seed. Matter of fact, he wants to produce his own seed. He wants to be like God. Isaiah 14:13, God is saying this about Satan. You have said for yourself, I will ascend to heaven and set my throne above God's stars. I will preside on the mountain of the gods, far away in the north. I will climb to the highest mountain and be like the Most High. This dude is a counterfeit. He wants to counterfeit everything that God is doing because he doesn't have an original idea. Now, I don't want to, make the devil to seem like he's stupid. Because he's brilliant. He's very intelligent. Satan, Lucifer, is very intelligent. If you can get a third of the angels to commit high treason, that's some gifting. Okay? So I want to jump to Genesis 6 because Jude is talking about Genesis 6, how angels left their position. Okay? So it says, when man began to multiply on the face of the land, and the daughters were born to them, the sons of God. This is a term, the The sons of God is a term in Hebrew which is understood to be very clearly used multiple times in the Old Testament as angels. These are not offspring of God. God created the angels, okay? They're not offspring of God. The angels do not share any equality with Jesus Christ. Angels are not related to Jesus Christ. They are created beings by God. Jesus was not created. So the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh, and his days shall be 120. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. Have you ever heard like weird stories of myths? Okay, just interesting. Okay, look. Let me just put it this way: we're not here to highlight the cracks. We're not here to highlight or bring references out of things that God didn't say. You understand? This is where people get into trouble. God told us everything that we needed to know. And if there was something else we needed to know about that time period, he would have wrote it down. So don't spend a lot of time on the things that he didn't say. Spend time on the things he did say. So he said it's multiplying. Angels that he created and established in places of authority left their authority. These are not angels that were kicked out by God. They abandoned their post. They left God because they wanted to be their own gods on this earth. They wanted to create their own race. And they did. And this is where the giants were created. The Nephilim. So the Lord saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. So we're talking a cataclysmic event from the time that Adam was kicked out of the garden to the time of Noah that is like, this is a mess. This is so bad that it can't be undone. So Nephilim or Nephal, which is a root word, means to fall or to be cast down or fall away or to desert. So these angels were deserters, okay? The fallen ones. And they created Higaborim, which is another term called the mighty ones. Another term could be gigantes. It's not gigantus, it's gigantes. It doesn't refer to that, but it sounds like giant, but it means to be earth-born. Now, the book of Enoch is very interesting. It is not considered an inspired book. You won't find it in your Bible. But the early church considered it inspired. We don't consider it inspired, so I'm not going to refer to it as Holy Scripture. But we can refer to it as historic, just like the book of Josephus and other writings as historic, okay? And matter of fact, Jesus, Peter, Paul, and Jude all referred to the book of Jude in the Bible. They quoted from the book of Enoch, And so, and matter of fact, several copies of the book of Enoch were found intact with the Dead Sea Scrolls in the mid-20th century. And one of the statements in the book of Enoch said, I heard everything from them and I understood what I saw, meaning the time of Noah. And not for this family, but for a remote generation, one that is to come. One that could be this generation that we're looking at. So there's a lot of interesting things that are brought out concerning these angels, and you have to understand heaven is far exceedingly abundantly above what we could think, ask, or understand, right? So do you think there's technology in heaven that we don't know about? Do you think there's abilities in heaven and ways of doing things in heaven that we don't know about? Paul said he was caught up into the third heaven, and God showed him things that were not lawful for him to speak on the earth. He was not allowed to speak of those things, not of everything that God showed him. But these angels used everything that God had made available to them in heaven and brought it to earth. And there was great perversions brought out. So we get to verse 7, it says, so the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds and heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. Another translation says, I regret that I made them. Now, for those people that like to say that God, he already pre-selects or predestines who's going to be saved and who's not, they have a problem with the scripture. They can't get around the scripture too well, because if what kind of God would it be to make something that I'm going to make it to fail? If he knew it was going to fail, why would he make it? Why would he regret? Why would he look at it and say, this is not what I wanted? So don't sit there and say that, well, God controls all my decisions and God's in control. God's in control of his plan, but is he in control of you? Really? 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 He's only in control of what you give him control of. Amen. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Verse 9. Check it out. These are the generations of Noah. This is why it's so important. Listen, Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Blameless means without defect. Let me explain this now. We saw the genealogy. We talked about the bloodline of Christ having to be pure, because that's God's plan to send Jesus Christ to redeem mankind. So if Satan got these angels to abandon their post, come down here and breed with humans, then suddenly you could breed out the seed of God's redemptive plan. And then there would be no hope. There would be no hope for humanity. And this is why God said Noah was a righteous man, blameless. Because it's referring to his generation. His bloodline was pure. It was not defiled. They did not intermarry. They did not intermix with the other mixed seeds that would have polluted the bloodline of Christ. Look, guys, this is so important, because we talk about Noah and the ark, and so many people say, well, that's a good fairy tale. It's a good fable. It's good in theory, but so many people in church in America do not believe the literal account of Noah and the ark and the global flood. They don't believe it. Well, maybe there was just a bad flood. Maybe the river overflowed and some people died. No, he said, I'm going to wipe off everything. This is a great reset. The great reset, the first one. Why? Because he is trying to preserve humanity to make sure that we have a hope today. God is not some evil villain up there trying to destroy the world. He's trying to preserve us. He's trying to save us and redeem us. So it says in verse 11, now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt. For all flesh, listen, had corrupted their way on the earth. Look, there are historic books of Jewish account that talk about how the angels mix seed between animal and man. You say, oh, but we're doing it today. If you look at some of the science that's going on today and playing with DNA and interjecting animal DNA in humans, and they're playing God now as we speak. So this, we can't say it's foreign. Matter of fact, they figured out how to make bulletproof skin. Because they took the DNA strand of spider web, which is the strongest known natural substance, and they genetically bonded it with skin, and they made it, and it withstood a .22 bullet, the skin. So they're playing God. And this is why you don't mess with your DNA. You do not mess with your DNA, your genetic code, because your genetic code comes from God. Now, the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. God saw that they had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, I've determined to make an end to all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. So, God sent, he said, build an ark. I want you to build an ark. And a lot of people think that, hey, it was just Noah and his sons and out there with it, and maybe they got it done. We don't have to worry about how they built it. God said they built it. If you believe that God said it, then go with it. Eventually, you're going to have some faith in God, that he's not a liar. He's not making up fairy tales. You have to trust that he had a way of helping Noah. If God asks you to do something, he's going to give you the funding and the ability to do it. So he built the ark and he said, I'm going to send 2 of every kind. Now, kind is interesting because there's a lot of different definitions between species and kind and this animal and that animal. And how could they fit all these dogs? Let's just use dogs, for example. How could they fit all these dogs on the ark with all the other? You know how many dogs, how many breeds of dogs there are? There's a lot of breeds, but there's only one kind, one species of dog, and they've all come from the wolf. The wolf is the pure DNA of the dog. And so you get all kinds. Yes, you can breed 2 wolves together, and through the degradation of DNA, which has happened ever since the fall of man, that's why they lived so long back then, and then lifespans got shorter and shorter after the flood, because of the degrading of DNA. And that's why God said, hey, 120 years, guys, unless you're eating McDonald's. Just saying. Wendy's, or whatever you want to call it, okay? I'm kidding. And so if you look at this, Noah cared for approximately 7,000 animals. Dude, that's a lot. But a lot of people say, well, how can you fit all these huge animals on the ark? Why is God sending fully developed, full-grown animals when he could send 2 little animals? Little cute puppies. Wouldn't you want to take care of puppies instead of full dogs? No? Oh, you guys, come on, work with me. Look at this. Look at this chart. Here's an exact sizing to help you understand the size of the ark. You could fit 450 semi-truck trailers on the ark. There was a lot of volume. You look at this, but you're not looking at volume. Volume. Leave that up for just a second. So we see that God made a plan. God had a plan. He used that plan. He redeemed mankind, put them on the ark. He closed the door, and then he brought rain. Now, people think that it rained. Okay, you can take that down. People think that it rained 40 days and 40 nights. Yes, it did. Now, if that was the case, like in the Northwest, we would need an ark because it rains for 9 months. Anyone? So more than just rain, the Bible says that the earth brought forth water. There was cataclysmic events that took place on this earth that reshaped it. And some people say, well, the Grand Canyon, that was made over millions and millions and millions of years. Well, how do you know? Were you there 1 million years ago? Or are you just making this stuff up because it sounds right? When you look at Mount St. Helens, when that blew and erupted, canyons were carved out within hours. Huge, deep canyons. Now you imagine a global flood and there was not one mountain peak that was exposed. That's a lot of water. Well, we don't believe all that. Well, that's okay. It's your choice. So they were in the ark, survived. God brought them to Mount Ararat, opened the ark. He come out and he said, go forth and be fruitful and multiply. And God sent a rainbow as a sign or a promise that, look, I'm not going to destroy the world. I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to do this again. This was a great reset. Go forth, multiply. He had a plan, and you can see how that plan just kind of fell apart. And then there was giants again, and that's why, the Israelites had to destroy so many. Go destroy the Amalekites, destroy. And people say, well, God's so violent. Violent. These people were violent. These people were murdering babies. Oh, never mind. But he sent a rainbow. Check this out. A lot of people think a rainbow is just a promise that God won't destroy the earth again. But a rainbow, according to God, is so much more, because Revelation 4:3 says the one sitting on the throne was as brilliant as gemstones, this is speaking of God, like jasper and carnelian, and the glow of an emerald circled his throne like a rainbow. Another translation says as a rainbow or a rainbow. Remember, Satan is a counterfeit. He's defiant. He thumbs his nose at God all the time. And he will take what God has made and he copies it for his purpose. And so now that you see the rainbow flag, notice how they want to fly the flag over. See, when God demonstrated his rainbow over the earth, he was saying to mankind, my glory is back over the earth now. My plan is back over the earth now. And Satan is trying to be defiant, trying to fly his counterfeit flag, trying to defy the plan of God and the purity of God. And some people look at that and they go, well, it's just a flag. What's the big deal? It's an agenda. It's interesting, one of the rugby teams, they were going to wear the new Pride jerseys. And there was some Maoris that refused to wear them. There were, I think, 7, and they called them 7 Pentecostal Maoris. Refused to wear them. Crazy, aren't they? Those Pentecostals, they're just crazy. And so now they're not playing on the team. It's interesting how many people are being asked to bow in solidarity to the flag. But if you don't, you will pay. Do you see what's happening? How Satan is getting people to bow to his plan and his agenda? And I'm telling you, if you call yourself a Christian and you're okay with that, you need to check your faith. To paraphrase the Dutch Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, he said, every knee must bow. The pride flag is not a symbol of tolerance. It is a banner of conquering and colonizing army. Politicians must attend pride parades and genuflect to their new overlords for fear of being asked why they did not attend, because the only answer can be hatred and bigotry. LGBT education must be permitted and promoted to children. Attempting to restrict the access of gay activists to children will bring the full wrath of the revolution on you, your church, your state, or your country. So there is another great reset that is coming. But you better figure out what side you want to be on that great reset. The Bible says that the last days are going to be like the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, and they're going to be like the days of Noah. I'm telling you, then God is trying to tell us the world is going to get worse, but the church is going to get better. God is not some arch evil Rue and the minions trying to mess with mankind. He's trying to preserve us through his son, Jesus Christ. Preserve the bloodline, because Satan is doing everything he can to disrupt the plan of God. But the best part is he's given us power and authority over Satan. Light always wins over darkness. Always. Now, we're just following the word. I'm not following an agenda. We're preaching the word in the accounts and we're laying it out. And some people say, well, Pastor, it sounds like you hate gay people. Never said it. Find it. If you can find it, please let me know. You'll never hear me say that I hate gay people. I don't like gay people, lesbian, anybody, whatever they want to call themselves. Okay? Never said it. Because I don't. I hate the agenda. Because there are people that are now struggling with same-sex attraction. They're struggling with gender identity. They're literally struggling with it. They're in a battle. And how can we help them if we agree with them? How can we help them to come to God if we think that that's okay? Because that's not the image of God. That's not the plan of God. And let me tell you something. This kind of conversation in churches is very hard for some people. They're like, we just don't want to, and guess what? You're going to have to pick a side. You're gonna have to figure out where are you on the Lord's side? Because being on the Lord's side doesn't mean that we hate people. It means that we love people and we want to redeem them, because you cannot go to heaven with sin. God is the one that redeems, not us. God is the one that saves, not us. The church, we're too quiet. We're too timid. Man, we've got the solution. And you know what? We got to have some patience with people. Had a person that they're gay and married, and asked, well, would we be okay to come to your church? I said, yeah, absolutely. But what do you believe? I said, well, we believe in biblical marriage. That's what we support. I can't support both. You know what I mean? But I will hug you, I will embrace you. But at some point, we just have to, this is where I stand. If you're asked on news and you're a minister, what do you believe about gay marriage? It's not about what I say, it's about what God says. This is what God says. I'm not here to defend it, I'm not here to support it, I'm here to surrender to it. That's all. Look, I'm telling you, if we don't learn how to address this and help people, and I believe there's going to be a time that we're going to see a wave of people coming in, finding healing and redemption and love and restoration. But we got to get it right first before we can expect that to happen. So here it is. This is where it starts. Starts with salvation. And give me 3 minutes. Nobody leave. Nobody get up. Worship team, I want you to come. Yeah, but I got this thing. I identify as this. I'm struggling with this addiction. Well, yeah, because you don't have Jesus. See, you don't wait to get better before you go to the hospital. I'm having a heart attack, but don't take me until I get better. Right? Don't call that ambo. Get me in there. Get me down there, right? You're having a spiritual heart attack. And Jesus has got the crash paddles, and he's going to bring you back to life. There's only life in Jesus. There's only life. It doesn't mean we're perfect. It doesn't mean we got it all figured out. It means he's perfect and we just surrender to him and he helps us figure it out. So I know this is a tough conversation for some people, but are you going to heaven? That's a real question. And if you think, well, I think so, you're 100% wrong. Because you can know so. You need to know so. And today you can know so. So we're going to have a God moment, and then we're going to have a man moment. God moment, bow your heads, close your eyes. And if this is you today, you want to renew your life with Christ, or you want to give your heart to the Lord for the very first time, I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3, and you're going to lift your hand up in just a moment. And after all the hands are up, we're going to have, that's our God moment. Then we're going to have a man moment. We're going to celebrate that. And then we're going to pray with everybody that's watching live on the internet. I'll say the words. Everybody will repeat them after me. We're going to make it as simple as possible. And then at the end of the service, we've got a team that want to meet with you. Please don't bypass that moment, okay? So here it is, 1, 2, 3, you raise your hand. If you want to get saved or you need to renew your life, because Jesus is the only way. He's the truth. He's the life. Here it is, 1, 2, 3. Lift it up if that's you. Yes, I see that hand. Yes, I see that hand. Anyone else? Anyone else? Come on, let's celebrate that today. Pray with me. Heavenly Father, come into my heart. Be the Lord of my life. Forgive me of my sin. I accept your Son Jesus as my Lord and Savior. Live in me as I live for you. In Jesus' name. And everyone said, amen. Come on, stand and sing it.